helped negotiate this whole thing. Now, I told y'all what it is. It's these ladies thinking that there's more money than what the WNBA actually have. I'm telling y'all, they're bankrupt. They ain't got no money really to give. They should just take their little $1 million, play the basketball, and help build this thing. Going on these rants, going on these little media tours, trying to undercut these owners is crazy to me. When these men and women has been dealt bad hands for the past 30 years.
NBA Commissioner Adam Silver displays increasing impatience with WNBA collective bargaining developments. Less than 48 hours remain before potential work stoppages emerge as possibilities. Examination of New York circumstances reveals troubling patterns. Fresh information surfaces regarding CBA discussions. Roughly 2 days separate current moments from the 9th, when present arrangements conclude at midnight. Numerous accounts describe ongoing athlete discontent with franchise ownership. Available intelligence indicates Silver grows progressively aggravated with entire circumstances. Expectations suggested completion occurring a month earlier.
30 damn years. Seems like everybody is forgetting that. Now, granted, Caitlin Clark coming has been a blessing, a tremendous blessing for him. But Caitlin Clark cannot fix 30 years of bad baggage. 30 years of baggage. Now, what she probably could fix is 5 years, maybe 10, the more her fandom grow and bring new viewers. But guess what they doing? They're talking about the new fans. They're killing the interest. Y'all talking about fans, tweeting, us making videos.
Instead, situations demand his personal involvement, requiring withdrawal from other duties to assist bargaining processes. Central problems stem from inflated financial perceptions among athletes concerning actual available capital. The WNBA functions without meaningful monetary reserves for distribution. Insolvency characterizes organizational finances. Athletes should embrace moderate wage improvements, maintain competition, and assist constructing viable enterprises. Public grievances and media campaigns designed to weaken ownership credibility appear irrational, particularly given stakeholders weathered 3 decades of economic hardship. This historical backdrop seems forgotten by many. Caitlin Clark's arrival delivered extraordinary advantages for the enterprise.
They're killing the interest. Y'all talking about fans, tweeting, us making videos. Y'all doing everything y'all can to sabotage y'all current little hype that y'all got, to the point now where the hype is so bad, hell, it's hard to get 5,000 views on a video right now. I just got to keep it real because ain't nobody else going to see it. Everybody is struggling. If your name ain't Rachel Demento, you're struggling. I'm sorry. It's that bad. But us trying to report on this thing is keeping on. So with that being said, bruh, let's dive into this article.
Nevertheless, one person cannot correct 30 years of compounded difficulties and accumulated burdens. Clark might potentially resolve 5 years of challenges, possibly extending toward 10 years as her appeal grows and captures fresh audiences. Yet current actions threaten existing momentum. Athletes disparage new supporters, eroding enthusiasm. Criticisms targeting social media engagement and content production undermine present excitement to degrees where participation declines severely. Present material barely achieves 5,000 viewing impressions, demonstrating brutal truths others avoid stating directly. All platforms face obstacles. Without recognition from particular established personalities, everyone encounters substantial difficulties.
So, with that being said, bruh, let's dive into this article that has just been released about an hour ago, man. This is from Front Office Sports. Not even an hour, about a good hour ago. So this is the current state of the WNBA. So WNBA hasn't countered players' latest offer as deadline closes. Players are seeking a salary cap of $10 million, 30% of league revenue. The league believes it will cost it'll be an atrocious loss. 30% is crazy, bro. How do you give?
Conditions have worsened considerably. Despite hardships, reporting persists. Recent Front Office Sports publication, issued roughly 60 minutes earlier, delivers vital intelligence regarding current WNBA status. Headlines reveal the WNBA hasn't countered athletes' most recent offering as time limits tighten. Athletes insist on wage ceilings reaching $10 million plus 30% of enterprise revenue. League administrators view this suggestion as financially devastating. Demanding 30% seems preposterous considering accessible resources.
It's crazy, bro. How do you give 30% of something you ain't got? They ain't got 30 to give. Damn, dog. Like, that's what crazy to me, man. Like, they want 30% of the money, but the money, where you going to get the 30 from, y'all? Please let me know. It said a little more than 48 hours ahead of January 9th deadline, the WNBA and WBPA remain at odds over a new collective bargaining agreement. According to sources familiar with the negotiations, the union was still awaiting a response.
The enterprise lacks adequate capital to furnish such proportions. Basic arithmetic doesn't support these claims. How does anyone allocate 30% of assets that remain non-existent? Questions persist about fund origins. Slightly beyond 48 hours before January 9th expiration, the WNBA and Players Union stay divided regarding fresh collective bargaining provisions. Individuals knowledgeable about conversations verify the union expects league reactions to offerings presented roughly 14 days beforehand as of Wednesday afternoon. Inside that package, athletes pursue approximately 30% of complete revenue plus wage boundaries approaching $10.5 million.
A response from the league to the proposal they submitted roughly 2 weeks ago of Wednesday afternoon. In that proposal, players are seeking approximately 30% of gross revenue and a salary cap of about $10.5 million. Sources confirmed this by Front Office Sports. So this isn't alleged. This is facts. According to Front Office Sports, they said they fact checked all of this. That's what they want. They want 30% of gross revenue, which is crazy. That's damn near half. That's damn near.
Front Office Sports authenticated these numbers through separate validation. These represent verified realities documented through appropriate confirmation methods, not speculation. Athletes desire 30% of total revenue, constituting nearly half of accessible capital. How does anybody claim nearly half when resources remained absent for 3 decades? Economic troubles continued throughout the enterprise's complete history. Envision someone insisting on half your wealth after experiencing insolvency for 30 years. The WNBA's persistent survival demonstrates extraordinary endurance.
Down there half, bruh. How y'all gonna get down there half of the money and the money ain't 30s? They've been broke for 30 years, bruh. Damn, could you imagine somebody want half of your money and you've been broke for the last 30 years? By the grace of God, it's still a WNBA. Says details of the union's proposal were the first reported by ESPN last week. The league believes the proposal would result in $700 million in losses for the league and its.
Further reporting specifics surfaced when ESPN originally addressed the union's package last week. League projections indicate the suggestion generates $700 million in deficits for the enterprise and affiliated franchises across the Accord's timeframe. Statements during an unrivaled transmission Monday referenced criticism surrounding athlete requirements. One administrator mentioned considerable conversation centers on purportedly unviable demands. From background managing viable enterprises, this administrator proposed that failure, identifying workable frameworks suggests necessity for alternative leadership. Assertions emerged regarding demonstrating feasibility and flourishing activities. Nevertheless, contrasting 2 years of operating information against 30 years of documented experience lacks rational basis.
Losses for the league and its teams over the duration of the CBA, according to that report. Goes on to say, you heard a lot of chatter about what we're asking for. It's not sustainable for the business. Nafisa Collier said during an Unrivaled broadcast Monday. Been on this side with Unrivaled, I know what it takes to run a sustainable business. Yeah, but you ain't had this business for 30 damn years. If they can't find a model that makes it happen, they need to put people in place who can. We're proving that it's possible. There is a way.
The WNBA sustained wage commitments, venue expenses, and assorted operational outlays across 3 decades. Proof of genuine profitability stays ambiguous. Previous season notwithstanding Caitlin Clark's beneficial influence, the enterprise documented $24 million in deficits. These realities shouldn't escape memory. The circumstances aren't complex. Declarations from particular athletes seem detached from economic actualities. Both factions accepted second deadline postponements, hours preceding original CBA termination on November 30th.
Oh, these players don't really know business. These players are these players are completely delusional. They don't have a clue what's going on. And then it doesn't help when you have Fee basically being like, saying almost an equivalent of, I know business, when based on scale, it's like saying you know how to run. You could run a supermarket because you ran a successful lemonade stand. That's the scale equivalent of.
Previous month, the players' union sanctioned potential walkouts through ballot participation, achieving 93%. 98% endorsed, permitting the union's executive management to announce walkouts when situations justify. Absent third postponement arrangements or work interruptions, whether ownership started lockouts or athletes started walkouts, outcomes aren't guaranteed. If neither faction starts interruptions, conversations might proceed under status quo circumstances. Under present CBA provisions, athletes cannot walk out without ending extended arrangements. However, throughout status quo intervals, the union might announce walkouts at any instant. This outcome seems probable.
Stand. That's the scale equivalent of unrivaled to the WNBA. And that is just going to... All that does is it strengthens the owner's argument of these players are fucking delusional. But you've still got players like Stewie, you've still got players like Fee, you've still got players like Caitlin, you've still got players like Angel, Aja, who know. Like, they know that it's like, this league needs to fucking happen. This season needs to happen. And at the end of the day, it's...
If union power exists for such announcements, walkouts likely emerge following January 9th. Forecasts suggest late January 9th scheduling. No further postponements appear plausible. Union-compelled walkouts seem forthcoming based on accessible intelligence. The players' union probably triggers any approaching work interruption against the WNBA. This evaluation stems from article examination. The union's package responded to league suggestions from early December.
And at the end of the day, it's one of those things where it doesn't really matter how long. Once this gets sorted by the 1st of April, it doesn't really matter. But now we're at least hearing that the players are confident that it's going to be done. Even at the last extension, which was 6 weeks ago, they weren't saying that. We still heard the word slap in the face. They were words that were used 6 weeks ago. And maybe if Nafisa Collier or Satu Sabali or somebody who just despises Kathy.
The enterprise presented athletes 17% of net revenue, which individuals knowledgeable about conversations estimate equals roughly 15% of total revenue. Wage boundaries would rise from $1.5 million to $5 million under the enterprise's newest provisions. Suggested revenue structures would establish maximum wages surpassing $1.3 million, with typical compensation exceeding $500,000 across the accord span. Present situations expose Silver's considerable annoyance magnitudes. Inquiries surface about failure finalizing accords. The approaching WNBA season confronts genuine danger. Demands for nearly half of revenue appear unreasonable when such resources remain unavailable for allocation.
Sabali or somebody who just despises Kathy. Like, Satu Sabali has been calling out Kathy publicly for years. Like, the fact is that the only people that are being combative now are the people that just hate Kathy. Which is completely fair, by the way. Like, I mean, I don't think, I would say the ownership of the WNBA and a lot of people that are involved in a lot of those private equity people are fucking nightmares to deal with. Like, I actually kind of make sense with that. But
the enterprise cannot furnish what it doesn't maintain. The Friday cutoff point approaches with just 3 days remaining, and while Breanna Stewart recently suggested optimism about finalizing terms, the prospect of meeting this target appears unrealistic. Reaching consensus by week's end seems implausible, though the scheduled boundary lacks genuine importance. Deadlines can be extended repeatedly, rendering the current timeframe essentially meaningless. The actual date holds no substantial consequence. Questions arise about why athletes wouldn't pursue work stoppages, but such actions would function primarily as symbolic gestures. Everyone involved recognizes the theatrical component, and ownership seemingly doesn't regard player positions with complete seriousness.
Kind of makes sense with that. But we got to be real here. If when it's all said and done, Kathy is Kathy's gone, nothing really, it doesn't really change anything. It does not really change anything in the grand scheme of things. But it might be better optics for these players. However, I think we see one more extension. I think we see one more extension for 6 weeks because everybody, they all know that a strike is completely performative.
League representatives have repeatedly suggested athletes lack proper business comprehension, characterizing their viewpoints as fundamentally disconnected from reality. This narrative gained credibility when FI drew comparisons, suggesting business knowledge derived from unrivaled involvement, an operation functioning at dramatically smaller scales than the professional organization. The comparison resembles claiming grocery chain management abilities based on operating a profitable neighborhood drink stand. Such statements unfortunately reinforce ownership narratives about player understanding being divorced from practical realities. Nevertheless, key figures like Stewart, Fee, Clark, and Reese grasp the essential nature of league operations continuing. Season progression remains critical regardless of ongoing friction. As long as matters resolve before early April, specific timing becomes secondary.
Is completely performative. That if they strike, and it turns out that, like, all that means, if they strike now, is that between now and when the deal gets done, any player that's rehabbing with their teams, any player that is working out with their teams and not at an off-season league, any player that's basically just sticking with their team can't. They're done. Like,
recent indicators show competitors voicing confidence about eventual resolution, a marked shift from 6 weeks prior when terminology like disrespectful offer dominated exchanges. Present objections primarily originate from individuals harboring extended disputes with Commissioner Engelbert, notably figures such as Satu Sabali, who has maintained public criticism of leadership across multiple years. These personal tensions with Engelbert carry justification considering many ownership figures and private equity participants create challenging professional environments. While leadership changes wouldn't fundamentally transform underlying structural issues, presentation improvements might enhance player perspectives. Another 6-week delay appears likely, given universal awareness that threatening walkouts absent meaningful season disruption operates purely as performance art. Executing a work stoppage presently would predominantly impact competitors undergoing rehabilitation or maintaining training schedules with their organizations rather than competing in alternative winter leagues. Numerous professionals currently utilize team facilities extending beyond isolated situations like Clark's arrangement with Indiana.
Like, I don't know off the top of my head who is working out with the teams, but it can't just be a Caitlin Clark situation with her in Indiana. Obviously all these players are working out. So it becomes really tough where it's like, okay, you've now got a situation where, like, these players, and it's probably a lot of injured players in your city. It's clear Sydney Colson's in Indiana for now. Obviously she might go to AU when that's being put on, but a lot of
Sydney Colson evidently remains in Indiana temporarily pending potential international obligations. Many athletes recovering from injuries maintain franchise facility access for treatment purposes. Disrupting these arrangements achieves nothing beyond demonstrating strike potential, which nobody questions. All parties, competitors, organizations, league administration acknowledge that pre-draft work stoppages provide no genuine negotiating advantage and serve exclusively as demonstrations. Agreement likely materializes around mid-March, specifically targeting March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. This projection accommodates Unrivaled's operational calendar, creating scheduling complications.
Being put on, but a lot of these players that are working out with their teams aren't going to be allowed to do it. For the benefit of what? Exactly. To show, oh, we can strike. I think everybody knows that the players can walk. But, like, the players going on strike now and the season not missing a game is just irrelevant, and it's completely performative. And everybody around knows that. The players know that. The teams know that. The league knows that. Everybody knows that a strike...
While that competition complicates discussions, the Tuesday through Thursday competition gaps offer windows for dialogue. Unrivaled wraps up March 4th with selection proceedings tentatively positioned for April 15th. Estimating 2 weeks following championship games for settlement, then expansion selection protocols 48 hours afterward, positions unrestricted movement to potentially commence April 1st. This condensed schedule allows 2 weeks separating unrestricted movement from selection proceedings, constrained but workable timing. This extension ultimately signifies minimal impact. Despite various concerns, completion appears guaranteed because competitors comprehend the implications. Setting aside business expertise debates, Athletes recognize that bearing accountability for league cancellation would permanently characterize their professional identities and inflict substantial harm on women's professional basketball, potentially reversing progress. Is disbanding generations.